So I need to fast.
Okay, good evening. It is 6 o'clock, so we'd like to get started. This is the regular meeting of the Town of Washington Planning Board, and we do have a quorum present. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd ask if all the members have received the minutes of the last meeting.
Yes.
Are there any corrections or changes? Okay, can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Take Richard and Anna, I think. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Mr. Kirk Horton is going to come up. We previously approved a lot line change at, tell me the address again?
Oh, well, there's two addresses, I guess. There's
I have to.
471 and
Okay.
447 Butts Hollow Road.
Great, and I signed a map approving this, and it turned out there was a typo in the map, so all we're doing is re-signing the map, and I just wanted to put it on the record since I've already signed one map. Okay, so give me one.
As far as the meeting, would it be this meeting or the meeting that it was the last
No, it
meeting?
was approved. This is about when it was approved.
Okay, so that's, yeah, third.
Take that one.
You can have all the rest.
Okay, yeah.
So you
So if you
can,
could just leave those to the secretary, and then I can sign
you
the
can sign them
rest.
whenever you want.
Yep, that would be great. Great, okay. So the next matter we have up is Schmidt and Conway, 443 Valley Farm Road. This is on, thank you. This is on for a public hearing. The applicants are represented by Crisp Architects, and they've applied for site plan approval and a wetland and water course permit for a 743 square foot addition to their house that is located entirely within the 100-foot wetlands buffer. They received a special permit from the ZBA that required them to get site plan approval from us. There is also a wetland permit application, as I mentioned. We've classified this as a type 2 action under seeker and referred the application to the CAC and the town wetland consultant. We also referred the application to Dutchess County Planning, and in April and May opened and continued a public hearing that has still been held open. So tonight we are going to hear from the architects. They can explain the application a little bit and answer any questions, and Aaron can update us on what's new with that. And then we have the continued public hearing. So if the architects could come up, good evening. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. So,
This is Joe Melito. I'm Jimmy Crisp. Sorry.
do you guys want to sit down?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I
we're
think you
good.
could grab a
Okay,
chair
we're
and
good.
sit.
We're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because this is a continued public hearing, it might be best if you explained the application a little bit in case anybody is here to speak on it.
Okay, we are here to represent the clients, John Schmidt, Wendy Conway. We've applied for a site plan approval and wetlands and water course permit, as you stated, for the addition which is located within the wetlands buffer. We've met with the DEC on site. They have no jurisdiction over that water. They are not concerned.
So even though they gave us gave you a letter that said they did have jurisdiction over it, they came back, they looked at it, and now they say no.
realized their wetlands were on the other side of the property, not
Okay.
even close.
Okay.
So they were giving us sign off, I believe, at the last meeting. Everything was pretty close pending DEC approval. And of course, they're on the other side.
Okay. Okay. Aaron?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate as far as what happened since last time. We kept the hearing open primarily because at the 11th hour we got a response from the DEC on the parcel just jurisdictional determination, saying that, yes, this property has wetlands that are under our jurisdiction. It's the entire property that they looked at, not necessarily this section. So Steve Marino, the town's wetland consultant, went out there, met with DEC and the applicant, determined that the pond, where this is, the buffer is measured from the pond in this case, it's not under their jurisdiction. The closest wetland that is 200 feet north of where the activities are going to happen. So, and they put a flag there, and they measured it, confirming that it's 200 feet, so there's no DEC jurisdiction. So the only other items to address were Steve's prior comments about wanting to see the details of the rain garden that they're proposing next to the addition to address stormwater, new impervious surface from the roof, making sure that it's treated properly or, put somewhere and not necessarily right into the pond right away. So there's a rain garden proposed. Steve had asked them to detail a seed mix that's for that, and they provided that. And he also asked them to provide some more native plantings along the edge of the pond, and they've done that in their plan as well. So I think Steve's comfortable with what they've done. The building inspector also provided a letter to the planning board stating that there's no improvements to the septic that are needed for this because it's still going to be a two-bedroom, or no new bedrooms are being added. So those are the issues that were dealt with. The resolution that was on the table last month was revised because of these things that have happened. So there's really only, one or two conditions now as opposed to like 3 or 4 that were on that prior resolution. So provided you can close the public hearing, there's a resolution on the table to adopt. So that's pretty much it.
Okay. Is there, actually, can I get a motion to reopen the public hearing? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Is there anybody here that wants to speak on this application? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing? Second. Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay. So, does any member of the board have anything to say before we talk about the resolution? We've been over this application for a couple months now. Okay. So, we have a resolution that's been circulated. And at this point, as, whoops, I'm looking at the wrong thing. There it is.
Yeah, and I drafted this because your attorney is conflicted on this application, so I went ahead and took a stab at it. The main points are that tried to put in chronological order all the different steps, the referrals that were made, the fact that DEC did say what they said, but then there was a site visit and cleared it up. I think it gets to all the issues on this.
And the only conditions left on it are that there's satisfactory completion and inspection of site conditions against the final plans and payment of fees in the town.
Yeah, I think Steve wanted that first condition in there so that he could take one last look at the site probably before the C of O is issued to make sure that everything that he asked for has been done.
I think that's a great idea. I like that in all of these applications. It's important. Okay. So, has everyone had a chance to review this resolution that we have circulated? Can I get a motion to adopt? So moved. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye, I should say. Okay, you're all set then.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your trouble and time. Thank you.
Thanks for your patience. Yeah, thanks for your patience. Yeah, and all the work you're doing. Okay. So the next application we have is actually, maybe, Doug, could you turn up the AC a little bit?
Yeah, we lost power and I forgot to turn it back on.
It's like, it just seems like it's getting very warm in here. I know there's a lot more people than we're used to having in the room, and I think it makes a difference. Okay. So, the next application is the Killarn Road application. It's the Town of Washington seeking approval. According to our code, they have to seek approval if they're making certain types of changes on a scenic road, and some of the changes proposed to Killarn Road meet those criteria. So they've come for that. And also, a number of these improvements abut the wetlands, or the wetlands across the road, or things like that. And so for that reason, they also had to give us a wetland and watercourse permit application. So originally we'd set a public hearing in May, but it was later determined that they needed the watercourse and wetland permits, so we pushed off that initial public hearing, and now we're having sort of a dual public hearing on both of these applications, scenic road and wetland and watercourse. And so tonight we have the town's engineer who's going to explain more about this application.
All right, thank you. I do have a presentation to go through. Take me just a second, and I also don't want to blind anybody who's sitting next to it when I set that up.
Setting the bar pretty high.
No, if the projector turns on, we're setting the bar on pretty high. Okay. All right.
We can only help.
Yeah. While that's warming up, I apologize for the etiquette. I am going to sit down so that everybody can see and so that the camera can see, but I would normally stand up at a public hearing to address everybody. Let that get a little bit clearer to go through.
Want to pull the mic a little closer too?
Sure.
If you don't mind.
Okay. Thank you. So my name is Dan Farnan. I'm an engineer with Colliers Engineering and Design. We were hired back in 2022 to help the town study the Killarn Road corridor and try to understand what some of the deficiencies were that the town had been experiencing with the roadway. Over the course of since 2022, we've gone through a very comprehensive study and gave recommendations to the town for how they could proceed with the project. So tonight what I want to do is go through an overview of the project so everybody here in the public has an understanding of what was decided on by the town board, why we're here at the planning board, what these two permits and approvals were asking for, what they are, and then just very briefly, what are the next steps for the project after this. So the overview, Killarn Road, the section of Killarn Road that we are going to have a project on is 3.2 miles long. It extends at the north from where Killarn Road's pavement ends all the way through the south, all the way down to County Route 23. The only section of Killarn Road that is not included in the project is the paved section in the north. It's one of 20 gravel roads that the town has in their inventory, and this road is designated a scenic road by the town laws. There were other public information meetings as part of our entire process. The largest one was a public information meeting on June 5th of last year, and there were two other town board presentations in prior years. So everybody here is aware, all of that information is available online through the town's website. Those meetings were recorded. The town board meetings are obviously recorded, and there's minutes for those. The public information meeting was video recorded. It's available online along with the flyers that were out for that. So if anybody needs to see the information on our study, it's all there for you. Summarizing what we found in the study, the biggest item of concern for the roadway was the drainage. The most acute problems that are experienced on the road is when the water is not properly draining off of the road for various reasons. The slope of the road, the cross-sectional slope may not be sufficient enough to drain the road. The shoulders might be too high and the water doesn't get off the road and it starts eroding that gravel material away. And in a storm like what we just had an hour ago, I'm sure if I drove out there, there's probably some gravel in some people's front yards. So fixing what they're experiencing for drainage on the surface of the road is the main issue. The other main issue is the wear and tear of the road. Gravel roads only have a life cycle of 15 to 20 years before they need to be rehabilitated. I don't know the last time that this road has been fully rehabilitated the way that we're proposing it, but just over the course of time, that kind of maintenance is needed, so it's time to do that maintenance here. Other issues that we had found were some geometric constraints where the road narrows and some of the right-of-way narrows. The soil conditions, which led us to need under drains in our proposed design, and some of the structural deficiencies in the roadway itself that will be repaired. So when we finished the study, there were 6 alternatives. The alternative that the town board picked is called the gravel reclamation, which is also known as mill and fill, with drainage improvements. What gravel reclamation or mill and fill is, the road will be ground up. That's the milling. In front of the equipment that grinds the road, they're going to place some new material. So when the grinder goes through, the new material and the old material is all mixed together. After that, everything will be rolled, compacted, and that will create the new foundation of the road, which will be shaped with the crown that we want for the rest of this life cycle, which is 4% in each direction, sideways, going side to side on the road.
That's a gravel road, correct?
That is a gravel. But the one that was just shown, that's, yeah, that's,
What's the final?
oh,
top?
yes, it will be a gravel road top, correct. The other portion of what we're doing are the drainage improvements. There are currently some swales up and down the roadway. We want to increase the amount of swales so that when the water gets to the shoulders of the road, it has a place to go. The under drains, which down in the corner you can see a little section at the shoulder of the road, we would be installing under drains underneath the gravel so that the water that is in the soil, when you have frost heave issues and everything, that has a place to drain out to try to control some of the issues during the winter.
You explained swales.
Swales, ditches, sorry. Ditches, yes. So, and there's a picture of one that does exist on Killarn Road here on the right-hand side. So essentially what you have here may be shaped a little bit differently, but it's about the same size, and that will be more prevalent up and down the roadway in different areas. The last thing, there's a number of cross culverts on the roadway. They're in variable shape. A lot of them are at the end of their life and they need to be replaced. This is a picture in the middle of one of them. So this is the time to do it when you do a major rehabilitation. So we want to pull out the old culverts, replace in kind, so we're not increasing the size. If it's a 15-inch pipe, a 15-inch pipe goes back. The ends of the pipes we want to dress up the right way to put end sections, and the stone, commonly known as riprap, will go around the ends of it. So the planning board review, obviously you know why we're here, but for the public, under the town code, this road is designated a scenic road. The town board granted the planning board authority to approve or disapprove any alteration or improvement to the road. And although rehabbing a gravel road is necessary for the life cycle, once every 15 to 20 years it should be done, some of the things that we're doing disqualify us from a normal repair, which then triggers the need to be in front of the planning board for approvals. Clarified in the May 6th meeting here by the conflict attorney, some of the things were drainage improvements that we're proposing, the widening that we are proposing, which I will explain a little bit in more detail in a second, and the rehab methods, the mill and fill, in their opinion, rise above that threshold where this approval is required. So to explain the alterations, this is a section of the existing road. It's a variable width roadway from 16 feet wide to about 24, 25 foot wide in different areas. On some sides of the road, you have the small swales, the small ditches, and other areas the shoulder is just built up too high and the water all stays on the road. And then the shape of the roadway, which is that peak, in some areas it's flat, it's at 0%. So the water that would run on the road, it can't go side to side, it can only go up and down the road, which then causes the erosion. The thickness of the gravel varies, but in some areas it's as deep as 24 inches of gravel. So there's a ton of material there for us to grind up and make a new foundation from. The proposed section, what we'll be doing, the milling of the gravel and then a placement of topping stone, so it's still a gravel road when it's done, shaped with that crown at 4%. Where we can, we're placing the small swales, ditches on each side of the roadway, and then you can see the under drains at the shoulders to help with some of the groundwater issues. To clarify on the widening, this is something I do want to clarify for the record because there was a comment made in April, May, and we addressed it early May that may have been a little bit confusing. This project, this alternative chosen by the town, is not widening the entire road 24 feet wide, the whole entire length from start to finish. That is not the widening. Instead, what we are doing is there's select areas, mainly where the road is very narrow, about 16 feet. We want to try to get it to 18 feet because that is a minimum for an AASHTO code for rural roads like this. That's just safer, so you have two-car travel if you have just a little bit more room. So mostly it's the 16-foot area that we want to try to get up to 18-foot if we have the right-of-way to do it. But in an area where the road is 22 feet wide, we're not bumping it up to 24. It's going to stay its exact width. The topping stone, what this will look like when it is all said and done. There's a couple options. Last time I was here, I spoke to you about this first option, which is the chip and seal. To explain what that chip and seal is so that everybody understands the aesthetics, that foundation after the milling is created. It's set, it's graded, it's hardened, and it's ready to go with a topping stone. In this process, a tar-like material will be sprayed. It's basically an adhesive, and then what we call in the industry chips, it's just a very small stone, is then overlaid on top of that. In this picture at the bottom, the equipment that's at the bottom is actually moving into the page, so that dump truck is going in reverse, and they're pouring the stone over top of the tar that's being sprayed ahead of it. And on this side, they've already completed that one lane, so you have that gravel look. I do apologize that this quality here is not the greatest. The actual presentation will be given to the town. You can put it online. We have all the pictures where you can see this a lot clearer.
Dan, just to confirm, you mean the part on the right that the truck is sitting on is what the final look is?
No, the part on the, what would be the, yeah, the left. That's so they've already done the one lane that direction.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
That's the tar that they're putting down, and then underneath, underneath the where the truck is the wet stone that's being laid
Oh,
down.
now I follow.
So after it's kind of dried out, it's just the stone
Is
material.
that the color it's going to be? Is that the earth color? Or
It's probably, stone varies. This is a project that's not in New York State, so depending on the quarries that are used, that's obviously a limestone because it has a whiter look to it. The stone that would be used here is whatever is a local quarry stone. So probably it would look bluish is usually what we get when we get that kind of material, a bluish gray.
Looks like this image has like a green tint to it that you have here.
Yeah,
So I just
yeah.
want to be clear that that's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why I said the presentation will be made available online so that you can see this clearer. Do apologize for the quality of the projector. I'll tell my company to buy us a new one. Okay, second option is a recycled material, which is abbreviated RAP. This material is currently being used by the town. This is Shady Dell Road. Last year there was a rehabilitation to just the top of the roadway where this material, which is also known in the industry as millings, was used, and this doesn't have any tar, so this is just stone that's placed right on top of that foundation that we're making of the gravel that's going to be reshaped and hardened. This is a more economic material to be used, but what this option does lack, one of the things, the tar-like material, it's emulsification, but we'll just, for most people would look at it and say it's tar. That will help seal from water getting in for a little while, so potholes and things like that adds more durability when you have the chip and seal. There is none of that material, it's just the stone that gets placed on top, so it gives the riding surface that would be necessary for a gravel road, and it can be shaped yearly or biannually, whatever the highway superintendent's maintenance schedule is to grade it.
When we might get to this, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So this is more economical. The first version that you talked about is, they have different life expectancies, so is one gonna last longer than the other?
Yeah, the chip and seal probably would get you a good 3 years before you'd have to look at doing something potentially, depending on what the wear and tear is on it. Chip and seals are a temporary fix that gets used on asphalt roads. They'll happen. Maybe you get a full 5 years out of it. This stone would probably have to be reshaped every single year or every other year, whatever the highway superintendent's schedule is for bringing the motor grader out there, reshaping it, bringing the material that's migrated to the shoulders back into the front and creating that crown again.
And the first version
It would stay there a little bit longer before the grading would have to happen.
So one of the issues that we're trying to mitigate or solve is mud.
Come on.
How does either one of these solutions affect the mud? Or the creation of mud or the spring?
So the mud would depend on the actual material here. I'm going to defer, seeing Shady Dell's been around for a while. Any issue with it?
It's about 2 years old.
2 years?
It's not a well-traveled road, obviously, but compared to Killarn. The idea being that the drainage, which is extremely minimal on Killarn, given its size, is what we're counting on. This material here is a mix of several different materials. It has a very hard surface, but it is and appears to be gravel, but it does wear well. I've had no problems with this as far as mud. There are areas we do have to, we will continue to, if we do do a gravel surface, we will continue to grade the road twice a year.
What do you have on Deep Hollow Road now? That's holding up?
Yeah, that is very much like this. It's
Right.
holding up very well. It's a mixture of several different, some milling, some item, some stone dust. The state regulates your item fours now. They actually prefer to use recycled materials. Sometimes you see brick, cement block. We don't use that. We take it from a local quarry, we mix it with stone dust and some milling. We just did Bonneque Road also. Want to take a look at that.
Between
options 1 and 2, which appears more natural.
Yeah.
This one definitely appears more natural. I would ask that during the course of the bidding that the engineers spec some hard materials that would, I am confident, will keep the road surface in good condition, albeit we still have to grade it. There's no getting around it, and it's labor intense, but we need something. We definitely need something.
Okay, we're going to hold public questions and comments
All right.
till after the,
I'll do the rest.
after the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. So that's the two options we have for the topping stone. And prior to this meeting, I'm sorry, Joe, the road that you just recently did, what was it again? Bonneque. There was a method used there that was suggested that we take a look at. So there might be a third option here. So we're still kind of trying to zero in exactly on what we're going to do for the topping stone itself. But no matter what, it is a gravel surface. It's not asphalt. It's not what you would traditionally call the paved surface.
Neither one nor two are paved surfaces.
Neither are paved surfaces. Chip and seal, although there's a tar-like substance that's used, I kind of consider that it's a treatment. It can be treated on top of a unpaved gravel road. It can be done on top of a asphalt road. So it's just a treatment to the top of a roadway. Second reason that we're here is the wetlands and watercourse permit. There are two culverts that exist and where the ends are currently inside of the wetland area. In order to even pull them out, replace them, there would have to be disturbance to the wetland area. And then, of course, we want to put stone that would be typically seen at the end of new culverts within where the wetlands are. So there's a total of 124 square foot of permanent wetland disturbance that would be necessary. And then also the road passes next to wetlands, so many of the areas of the road are within 100 foot of a wetland. So the next steps on the project, basically to the construction phase, We would go through this process, we would take input, we would make any corrections we need to plans, we would then finalize the plans for the bidding set. We have to secure all of our permits. The town board has to secure funding to do this project if they have not already begun that process. And then ideally, if all of those first three things are done, bid maybe as early as fall of this year if funding is in place, and construction next year. And that is what I have for the presentation. So I'll,
Okay,
however
great.
you want to have it.
I think next we'll hear from Aaron, and you can tell us if there are any issues outstanding or other things we should be noted.
Sure. So we had a initial comment memo back in March, I think it was, yeah, where we called out some things from the code just to make sure they were being looked at. I'm relating to section 165-54 G5B, which has a number of things to be considered for a scenic road that the planning board is supposed to be looking at. One of those is, most of these have been resolved based on responses that we got back from Colliers, the town's engineer. There was one that I guess we could talk a little bit more about, maybe get some clarification. It's item G, which is minimize impact on roadside vegetation, including but not limited to trees, shrubs, and wildflowers. The response that they provided was that there'll be some tree and brush removal to accommodate drainage improvements and the widening. The EAF, the environmental assessment form that the town board was that is in charge of for seeker, notes that there will be about 0.7 acres of removal. It wasn't clear to us if that includes any kind of mature trees, or what are we dealing with here with the 0.7 acres, and are we making efforts to avoid removal of large mature trees that give the road its character, so to speak.
So on that, we do not want to remove any of the large mature trees. There's one portion of the roadway where I know it's very scenic. There's a large trees that give it that look that we want. The area that I'm speaking about in our application, we have a tree line, vegetation line from the survey. That can be anything from brush that's overgrown. It can be sapling trees. If there is a tree that is close enough to the road, which I don't know if the highway superintendent is truly allowing trees to be as close to the roadway as we're working, but if it is in that way, we would have to try to work around it or remove it. But we're not trying to diminish the scenic look, so we are more than willing to add notes to the plans to try to preserve mature trees, and even if we needed to during the process of clearing, have somebody kind of look and see what is, mark out the clearing and see what's there and preserve any trees that we don't want.
Yeah, maybe another thing was, and it's up to the board obviously to decide if you want to see something, but if there's some photos of the area that we're talking about, just to, you can show what
It's
what
a little
we're
tough
talking
to
about.
do that because it's literally through the whole entire 3.25 mile corridor where there's some brush that shows up as a tree line in our plans, and we have to show that our work is beyond it. So
But it's
it
all
literally
right.
could be overgrown
How
shrubs.
did you get the calculation of 27 acres?
0.7, 0.7.
Point
Less than 1.
0.7 acres.
7
Yeah, very
0.7
small.
acres, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, not 27 acres, so.
0.7.
That would be a whole different project.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I said that would be a whole different
Yeah.
project.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Let's see what else is outstanding. So that was the big one. That a lot of other things were addressed. Like it's not gonna be asphalt paved. We're not concerned about speeds being increased. You're not really changing any of the curving on the road. It's going to be what it is now. You're staying within the right of way most of the time, right?
Yes.
Probably all the time.
All the time within the right of way. The only thing that would happen is some very insignificant portions of the road might have a little change in curvature, but all your large sweeping curves, the way that you feel when you're driving down the road is not going to change.
And I had a question about the mill and fill, as you described it. Once that process is finished, is there additional loose material put onto that surface on a regular basis, or is it just finished and left as it is?
As part of the project, the topping stone would be what the contractor would place.
So that's a loose topping stone.
That is, it depends on the option we go with. It could be a stone that looked like what Shady Dell Road has, yes. So that's then shaped and make sure you have the 4% slope. After that, it will be up to the normal maintenance schedule of the town, whether or not they need to supplement that over time.
Okay. Then on the issue of the wetlands permit in general, my firm we're deferring to Steve Marino, who's the wetlands consultant for the town. He did issue a comment memo today. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but, and it
Which
should
I
be...
should note is not up on the website yet, but it came in late
It
this
should be,
afternoon.
yeah.
So tomorrow it'll be up on the website.
He's walked the length of the road. He's been in touch with the applicant, which is the town, their consulting engineer. And I think he's in agreement with that, the disturbance, 124 square feet, and it's really just where there's drainage happening now. It's just no change there. It's just going to be improved, but there'll be some disturbance to that area that is technically a wetland. His main comments were that he wants to make sure that the erosion controls are in place and that he has a chance to inspect those as you're working. He didn't raise any concerns about DEC jurisdiction of those, of any of the wetlands along the road. He doesn't believe that they will have any jurisdiction. He did mention Army Corps involvement, but it would be a nationwide permit that's pretty standard that I think you've already started the process on.
We did the permit. We filled out that one-side permit. We would have to wait for signatures from the town board when they're ready to apply for that.
Okay, so that would be something that, and Steve can assist with that as well, I'm pretty sure.
What do you mean nationwide permit?
So for the Army Corps of Engineers, any kind of, if a wetland's under their jurisdiction as waters of the United States, there's a process for if you're disturbing anything or if you need to build a road or a bridge, there's different, what are called nationwide permits, and they're categorized by different activities. Remind me what number this one would be? Is it 14?
Linear road.
So this would be a linear road, nationwide permit 14. It qualifies under that. And I think Steve's memo touches on it, and I can pull that up
So
really
by
quick.
nationwide permit, it means it would just automatically fit into that category and wouldn't need their involvement?
It's a little, so you can have an individual permit or you can have a nationwide. They're just, I don't want to use this phrase, but they're more convenient ways because there's so many applications. They just categorized all the various projects that they get. They create the nationwide, and then they fit projects into each one of
Yeah.
those. So they don't have to give you an individual that is specific to your project. You just fit into categories.
And I think Steve's memo talks about this. He says, in the strictest sense, I'm quoting it, this work would also require approval from the Army Corps of Engineers. In general, any application for disturbance to wetlands of less than 4,356 square feet for the purpose of road maintenance is treated as a minor disturbance under nationwide permit number 14 and would not require a pre-construction notification. So that was his advice on that. So yeah, I think he's pretty comfortable with this as far as the wetland application that was required for the town and just the project in general and what its purpose is. I know it was referred to the CAC, and they probably will submit some comments. We also recommended that the application get...
We did refer it to the CAC prior to the wetlands application.
Okay.
So I think we needed to kind of make another formal
Yeah,
referral to them tonight and just...
we can get into that. Yeah, I'll talk about a couple other things first.
Okay.
A couple of other minor things to note. So this project has to go through SEQR, State Environmental Quality Review Act. The town board in this case has issued a notice that they intend to be the lead agency because it's their application. And I believe that was circulated and the planning board received notice that,
I think yesterday
yeah.
came in, yeah.
So the planning board in this case is what's called an involved agency, but the town board ultimately has to approve this as well, but you're an involved agency because you have this scenic roads provision of the code that's under your authority as well. So they're the lead agency, or they're asking to be the lead with the planning board is involved. They would lead the SEQR review. There's been an environmental assessment form submitted by the engineer, a part one of that, which we looked at and it looks fine. We wanted the new comment in the memo was to make sure that any quantifiable information that has come up since you last submitted it gets put in there. For example, the 124 square feet of wetland disturbance, make sure all that stuff is noted. properly?
We actually just revised that.
Okay.
It's a type 1 application.
It's a type 1 application because it's technically disturbing over 10 acres, which raises it to a type 1 action. It just requires completion of the full environmental assessment form by law, which they've done. It doesn't necessarily mean this is an environmental impact statement type of project, but it's a type 1 action which has specific requirements, including filling out the full form. And the part 2 is also a longer process in the short form. It goes line by line with all the impact areas and categories of large impact, small impact. And it sounds like the town board will be going through that as the lead agency when they're prepared to do so. So, talk about seeker. This application was also referred to the county, and they came back with, under the 239M referral for county planning, they came back with a letter in May saying that it's a matter of local concern. They had no comments on this. We noted that there's the agricultural data statement that was part of the application, which is missing some information. It's just to get that caught up to what's required in the code.
On that,
yeah.
the information that was noted was having a map involved. Would it be all right if I just indicate on these plans which of the properties are in the ag district? Or do you want does it need to be a separate map?
Separate would be good, because maybe one that shows the full length of it like you had in your presentation, because you're supposed to go 500 feet out from the boundary. So it should be easy enough. You're just identifying properties that are in the ag district.
Okay.
And this isn't affecting any ag activities.
Right.
You know, it's just improving an existing road, but it's going through an area that has ag land. Okay, so our recommendations for tonight were to discuss the application, have the presentation, open the public hearing, make the referral to the CAC formally for the wetland-related comments. It also should go to the highway superintendent, technically, is what the code requires, even though they're heavily involved already. It's supposed to be referred to them. And then, again, if you want to keep the hearing open, you can. It's just, tonight we're opening it for the first time, so.
I think, I'm sorry, at the last meeting you voted that you were not going to object to the town board serving as lead agency. Since that time, it was clarified that it was not unlisted, a type 1. I think just to keep the record clean, it would be good if you just voted again to confirm with the updated information that you're not objecting to the town board serving as lead agency.
Sure, I think that's a great idea. Can I get a motion to that effect? So moved. Seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. So, I do think we'll end up having to keep the public hearing open because of the referral to the CAC. So why don't we start just by making the referrals. We're going to refer this to the CAC on wetland issues and a referral to the highway superintendent. As the code,
Because it kind of originates
exactly,
there,
but we're
again, keep the record clean.
that's what the code says.
Yeah.
So next, can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So,
Seconded?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So I imagine that there are some people here who would like to speak on this application. If you would, turn this flag around. I would ask you to come forward and write your name there just so that we know who you have, and tell us who you are, and if we can keep comments somewhat brief, because we do have a lot of
Are questions permitted too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
okay.
Sorry, Chris Mann, I always got to start with an apology if you already covered this and I wasn't listening for a second. Is chip and seal basically the same as oil and stone? As a serpent? Okay.
Yep. Could I just ask, just so I know how your board operates, I have been at other boards where public hearings, the questions are gathered, written, and then I have to provide written responses. Am I allowed to just openly answer, or how is your process?
I think we would probably prefer that you just open it.
It's a lot easier. Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, oil and stone be kind of the same.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, just to be, I live on Claren Road, I know some of you, but, and then the second is just a process question for the board. Does the board get estimates for, my sense was option 2 is less expensive. Does the board get estimates for options 1 and 2 and then decide to put a contract out to bid for one of those 2 options, or do you ask for bids for the 2 options and then make a decision?
We are only the planning board, we may approve this project, but that would be the town board
Got
that
it.
would do that sort of thing, it's their
Got
project.
it, okay.
One of the things that we can do and we have discussed is the way that we might bid this is all of the other work is base work and allow the contractor to give us option 1 and 2 and give a price for what that would be. And then they would, the town would be able to decide based on the pricing at that point that they approve the base work and option 1 or the base work and option 2, whichever
Got
they
it.
would want to do.
Okay.
So you originally had proposed 6 options, and it's been narrowed
But-
down to these 2?
Sorry.
It's been narrowed down to
The
these
6, yeah, the 6 alternatives that we proposed, everything from just very minor repairs all the way to a full reconstruction of the roadway and paving it. So those were the alternatives. This, what we're proceeding with, is alternative 3. We have options that we can do for the topping stone, and there's right now 2
We
options.
do have members from the town board who are here. Is that the plan to get, to bid out both options?
So the plan, as Dan said, the plan would be the option that we chose, mill and fill, right? That is
The alternative of mill and fill.
Right, we're talking about the top. But then the topping would be like an additional, like choice. Like, we want to do the mill and fill. We want to do that here. But the topping would be under discussion, the cost, and if 100 people are against it, like, if we have to listen to public comment for that.
So you may not even
We
do
may
a
not
topping.
even do
There
it.
are, these
No,
2 toppings
there-
are options.
No, the topping, there has to be something, that's a wearing course
But
that
not
for,
the chip and seal, is what
I-
I'm trying to.
Of the top, you're saying that
Yeah.
there's an option between the 2
Yeah,
toppings?
yeah.
yeah, there's an option between the 2 toppings. The mill and fill has to happen,
So
that
as
creates,
explained, what's on shaded gel or what the chip and seal.
So
Okay.
you're not deciding on the topic?
No, we're not deciding on the topping,
Right.
but
You are deciding
I
that
do-
the topping complies with the scenic road.
That's
I just
my-
want to be clear on that.
that
And
was
if they
just my
want-
next question, like, how, for us to make a decision on whether what is being proposed complies with scenic road rules and regulations, are they so similar that we should be thinking of them the same? Like, how, I don't know, if we don't know yet what the topping is, how do we determine that?
I would recommend that, and I heard that there might be a third, I think, during the presentation considered. I would recommend that all 3 of those be evaluated, and if the town board wishes to keep those options open, that you set that forth in the resolution, that they have the options and that you've evaluated each
That all of those are,
option.
okay.
And if you find one of the options does not meet your criteria, obviously, that needs to be addressed by the board at this time.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So you may, like, chip and seal might be an option where, oh my gosh, it's not in compliance with, but you have to understand what chip and seal is. I mean,
Yeah.
Do you understand as a board what it
I
is?
do.
It's not altogether, it sounds more harsh because of the steel and the tar involved, but it's really not. It's actually a good, how would you describe it? It's almost like a seal, like a water seal, you know?
A lot of driveways in the town have that.
Yeah, a lot of people
Yeah.
do have it, I've seen it before,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, is there anybody else who would
Yeah.
like to come up and speak?
Niles Wheeler, 342 Killarn. One of the things you put up there was a culvert.
Yeah.
Which goes into my pond, which is a spring-fed pond, which I have trout in. It's a very clear water pond. Problem I have now is it gets silted the way it is on the road. And I'm hoping that whatever you plan on doing will not make that worse than it is. It's been difficult to deal with anyway.
got it. I know which pond it is. Let's bring it up.
My pond's about 100 feet off the road.
Yeah, I'm just checking if that culvert is being slated for...
That was the one you pictured on the...
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if that was, it was by random. I think there's at least 30 culverts, so, yep, it is, it's proposed to be, replaced, so it's an 18-inch, proposed to be replaced.
Well, what I'm worried about is what he's gonna do to the drainage this way towards my pond.
So we're not changing anything to do with the grading on the sides of the road or the way that, all it is...
Okay,
it's
what
just an
happens
old
now
pipe.
is that the road silts into that culvert,
Okay.
and the culvert silts into my pond. So I wanna make sure when you're gonna make changes, it's not gonna make that situation where the materials that you're using are gonna silt more into the pond.
Got it. The materials are not migrating more. I mean, ultimately, the only thing that's being changed there, the pipe is old, so just taking the pipe out, putting a new one in at the same size.
I hear what you're
but-
saying, but if you're gonna build the road up, and that kind of gonna add more silt that's gonna get into that culvert, it's gonna drain off when you have a rainstorm like you had this afternoon.
Got it.
And I wanna make sure
yeah.
whatever that is, doesn't affect that even more so.
You use the term build the road up. I'm not sure they're building the road up.
Well, even as you do it now, you move it around, you
They're
lose,
moving around the bed, yeah.
and it makes it worse.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it'll make the topping harder, so I mean...
Hopefully, well, that's why I wanna make sure that,
How do we address something like that when there's runoff into a pond?
I wanna make sure whatever the culvert changes are gonna do doesn't affect that in a worse way than it already is.
And I'm his partner, I guess
My wife.
the decision that I would,
I don't think we're gonna be able to hear you.
okay, okay. My question would be if we do the second option where it's the tar and then it's the stone on top that's ground, is that something that's going to be preventing that from happening? So that it's running off, you can see it as you drive right to our house.
It runs right down.
It goes right down in the field, and you see the whole thing going right into the pond.
We can look at
Would
the
that
others.
make a difference?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not the only one.
Your comments are being noted, and they're gonna have to look at that as they get to that. It's, all we can do at
Yeah,
this point.
okay.
Of course,
is
okay.
I just wanna make sure.
I think,
He's aware of that.
speaking from some knowledge about this, I
Yeah.
think the whole purpose of this project is to stop.
Yeah, that's what
Silting.
that's
This
my
thing
most.
from happening,
And from
okay.
happening,
Yeah.
and to make the road itself more permanent road and less washoutable.
Right.
So it doesn't get the mud, it doesn't get the runoff, it doesn't get the erosion that you've been experiencing on that road.
Right. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So long as that works, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I would just know, while we're keeping a dialogue, I think for anything where you have to look at something, if you could follow that up in a comment memo after tonight, so that the board knows that the matter was evaluated. I know we're doing a lot of the comments right here with a dialogue, but there's gonna be a couple issues he can't answer off the top of his head, so.
Is there anybody else who would like to come on up? Please just lay your name down.
Hi, my name is Charles Clark. I live at 430 Killen Road. Are there any diagrams online that show where the culverts are going to be?
No culverts are moving, so they're, where they are right now is what we're replacing. It's just in kind in the same location. These should be online, I imagine? Yes. So on our plans,
They're on the planning board's page? Great. And then, oh dear, my phone's listening to me. Stop.
they're all listening.
Have you had this process followed for any other scenic roads in the town to date?
What should be done in Bonnecue sounds like, right?
You mean the proper
So everything we're doing here today, do we go through this same process for Bonnecue and Shady Dell?
The reason that this application came before us is because, originally, was because there are certain things that they're doing, like widening the road, and that bring it within the context of the rules, of the zoning codes, regulations and rules as to when they have to get a special permit from us to make changes to that road.
Got
The
it.
changes that I believe were made on roads like Shady Dell and Montague, they didn't widen the road, or they didn't make any of these larger changes, or they didn't get, change something near a wetland.
It's ordinary maintenance.
And
So-
this came pretty close to being just ordinary maintenance, but there were a couple of sections where they needed to make some changes that brought it in front of us.
Yeah, the code, I can add to that, the code specifically says routine road maintenance, emergency repairs, and the issuance of driveway permits undertaken by the highway super shall not require public hearing or planning board approval. So any scenic road that experiences those things may have happened recently, but it didn't rise to the level of where we are with Killearn here.
Got it. Did you know if we did the mill and fill process on Shady Dell or the other road that you mentioned, Montague? We did not.
No, we did not.
So that
We
w-
don't have the equipment to do that at the highway department. This is just the topping of the road, not a reconstruction. What we're alluding to is the type of materials that we use for people to look at that are working. Also, Shady Dell is not a
Got it. One of the reasons why I ask is it'd be great to go see another road that is going to that went through the same process that we potentially could be going through for Killearn Road. Does anyone know if there is a road
Is there
like
a
that?
road that has done this whole process in
Not in
town?
our- not in
No,
our-
I don't think so.
But the topping would be the same if it...
The finish, what the finished product looks like,
Road and Shady Dell Road would
Yes.
be...
The highway
they-
superintendent could direct you to.
Did they
But they didn't do mill and fill
They
to
didn't.
create a
You've never seen-
solid
you've never
surface.
seen mill and fill.
No, but you could tell whether the road maybe is handling the rains and
Right.
that sort of thing. But no, there's nothing quite like this.
Yeah, there's something else I would just mention too. Towns that do have gravel roads, if they have the equipment and if they are able to rehab every 15 to 20 years. I lived in the town of Stillwater. We had a number of dirt roads when I grew up. The highway super, they just went out and did it. There were no process, there were no engineers involved. So does this happen in other communities? It probably does, and those highway supers are just
Doing it, yep.
So knowing about it, it would be more, around here would be a local matter of knowing an adjacent town that might be doing that process to basically just ask the question.
Got it. My last question is, what's the timeline for executing? So from start to finish of a project like this, do you have a thought on?
Time the contractor would take?
No, so when the construction the impact of the people that live on the road, how long will that be? And will there ever be a point when you can't leave your property and go one way or the other?
Temporarily, there could be, depending on how the contractor does it. If they're able to keep one lane open and do half the work on one side and half work on the other, they would just have alternating lanes. The amount of time that it would take, this would be done in kind of an assembly line, start at one end on one lane and move all the way through, flip around and move
Okay.
all the way through, and they would be just alternating traffic each way that they did that.
Yeah.
The amount of time could be from the time a contractor is hired to the time that they finish everything that they have to do, could be a couple months.
Okay.
But it would not be a couple months of you can't drive. It would be on certain days, they're working from here to here and you'd
On
have-
one side of the road?
Yeah,
So
one side,
you'd
yeah.
always be able to leave somehow?
Oh, yeah, we can't close the entire road.
Right.
They would, yeah. so.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Come on up.
Hi there, my name is Roger Kirby. I have a question regarding the oil and, the oil and stone option one. When the would the toppings wear off over time with normal wear and tear?
They can. Usually they get ground into the material underneath as driving over it and just the snow and just normal wear and tear. Some of it will migrate and move around, and then eventually you get back into the cycle of needing to do the normal grading that Joe, the highway super, does.
And as the toppings wear off and as a result of normal wear and tear, would the tar-like material underneath then become visible?
No, by the time, so once it's very dramatic when it's put down, right? It's black and it looks tar, but over time, all of the material, all of the dirt, all of the dust and everything, that's just going to change into that color. It's not going to look black as those pieces come off. Maybe the very first day, if you go out and pick a piece off, you'll see a little bit of black, but over time, no.
But also you'd see some degree of black over time of this tar-like material as the top
Not
and the
over,
low?
no. The days that it's just done. Like if you go out there right after it's done and pull some stone up, you might see it, but over time, it's going to start absorbing all of the dirt and dust and everything that's there, and it's going to turn to that color.
And then the other question concerns funding. Apart from taxpayers, what would the possible sources of funding be?
Again, we're a planning board that has the ability to approve this project, but we don't fund it. That's a town board. They will have to talk to that.
Oh, the town board is represented here. Is there, can you just generally describe what sources of funding other than taxpayers you hope would be available?
Other than taxpayers, I can't figure that right now.
And the taxpayers would not be limited to Killarn Road residents, is that correct?
No.
So it'd be anybody, any,
The roads are deemed to be for the entire public, so not for them.
so eventually the entire public would be invited to a hearing like this if they'd have a financial interest, is that correct?
The entire public, they are invited to that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
everyone, this was a public hearing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, thanks for being here and appreciate all the time you put in. Steve Mulligan, 539 Killarn Road. I just happen to own both sides where the worst heaving before you head up. That's me.
Okay, I got
So,
it, yep.
and I know this even though I haven't owned it long because there's a fill for the fire hydrant, for the fire trucks from way back when. So it's about 8 feet below the surface of the road. So my question is, as this relates to drainage, on my property, none of the drainage works because the road, so much material has been brought in to try to alleviate the heavings that the road is about 10 to 15 feet higher than it was when the drainage was engineered. So the finished height of the road, is that going to change?
Minusculely, it will be basically the same as what it is now.
Okay, thank you very much. So are you going to put in ditches? I hear existing culverts, but I'm a little confused about what the drainage work's going to be.
Yeah, so where we can fit them within the right-of-way, and in every opportunity that we have, we are putting the ditches, the swales on the side so that the water that comes off of the road has a ditch to go into, and then that's directed to where the culverts are crossing over.
Awesome, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Anybody else?
I have a question, it's not really an engineering question, but it relates to the resurfacing. My name is John Ike, I live in the middle of Killarn. Have any studies been done as to average speeds, or increase of speeds, when a road is changed?
When a road is changed?
Well, in terms of what you propose, 1 or 2 or whatever.
Right. I can't speak to any studies where somebody has looked at a specific situation like this to do a before and after study of traffic volumes and speeds. We did, as part of this study, do traffic counts, and we do have the speeds, and that is documented.
Oh, they are?
Yes, it's within the report that we have, and that should be online underneath where Killarn Road is on the town's website. So there's mention of what the speeds are currently. I do not expect the behaviors or the speeds to change based on this because we're not dramatically changing the surface, we're not dramatically changing the alignments, the weaving or anything, so the way that what usually controls speed is the shape of that roadway and whether or not people feel that they can go faster or not.
The shape and how much grip
Grip they
there
have,
is
correct.
in the gravel.
Right. So it should be...
I suspect there would be more grip with the tar layer underneath it.
Possibly. I don't know that it... I don't believe that it would be noticeable enough to anybody. You're driving on a gravel road, you're going to feel. It's not going to be like a smooth, freshly paved asphalt roadway. So I don't believe that people who would, maybe increase speed because they're on a freshly paved roadway would feel the same way driving over chip and seal or any kind of millings or anything like that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. So, we're going to, as we said, we're going to keep the hearing open till next month. We are going to be hearing from the CAC. And, I think that's it, right? Is there anything else we need to? We've done that part.
Yeah, is this recorded now? It's being
Yes.
recorded? I took some notes. If you want me to give you a summary of the questions,
Sure,
and you
that
can
would
write a
be great.
response memo.
Yes, that would be great.
I can send you them tomorrow, just quick.
Do you expect to come back and have a third option presented?
I just found out about it coming in, so I'll talk with the highway super and see exactly what it is, if it's different than the topping stone option 2, it possibly.
I did have one question I forgot to ask. You talked earlier about not changing the size of the culvert. And by those culverts, let me clarify, do you mean the culverts at the end of people's driveways that go in those ditches?
A few of them may be changed. There's a number of them on here. There might be 1 or 2 of those that are changing. Most of the ones that I can recall are under the road. Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So the other ones that are at the end of people, I used to live on Killarn Road and I'm very familiar with this exact area, but a lot of what happens is this water comes rushing down the side of the road in the ditches, and everyone has a culvert underneath the entrance to their driveway.
Mhm.
And those culverts are various sizes, depending upon all the different properties, and depending upon when they went in, and depending upon what the person thought when they went in.
Right.
And so, doesn't that constrain those ditches? Because you're gonna put in ditches all along the side, but if they keep hitting these culverts that are only this big, or when they should be this big, that kind of thing.
Some of the limitations that we do have with this project is the right-of-way, if and where the driveway is. If we would have to work into somebody's private property, then we're talking about 50 some odd easements and things of that nature. So if the culvert is within the right-of-way, if it does have a capacity issue because we're directing a swale to it, or a ditch to it, it is something we can look at, but I think what the main goal was here was replace in kind for those driveways. And again, I want to just double check to see if we are replacing any of the driveway culverts. The ones that we're replacing across the road, we're trying not to impact more than we absolutely need to by increasing the size of the pipe. Another thing that could happen too, that we just want to maintain the drainage as it is. Water goes where it goes, right? So if water comes to an 18-inch pipe, if I make that a 24 or 36, on the downstream side, whoever owns that land might see water going a little faster on their land. I don't want that to happen. If it's going a certain flow through the pipe today, I want everybody who lives on the downstream side of those to not have an increase, not see the change. So it just seemed logical that if we're going to replace them, just replace them in kind, as opposed to going through an whole operation of increasing size and then figuring out downstream impacts from there on private property.
What is the right of way, 16 feet from the center line of the road?
The right-of-way varies all the way through. Yeah, generally it can be as narrow as 30 to 40 feet in some areas, and then it is as wide as near 60.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Okay, well, I think we're okay for this month. We'll see
All
you
right.
next month.
And whoever was after me, I apologize for the length of time, especially if it's a short application. No problem.
Thanks for the presentation.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Yes. Great, thank you so much. Yeah, we have one more left. No. Oh, okay. I don't think we'll... Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Let the room clear out.
No, I'm on my own.
Change things up.
Yeah, come on up.
Good evening.
Excuse me, we have another matter. If we could clear the room? Okay. Excuse me by the door. Can you tap him, please? Hi. Remind me of your first name.
Sure, Renee.
Renee.
Our initial presentation to the zoning board of appeals, our architect, Anthony Fresenda, presented on our behalf. He was unable to attend this evening. He's got a non-journey leave,
So your application, this is one, you've already gone to the ZBA, and they gave you permission to expand a pre-existing non-conforming structure.
Exactly.
And they gave you 3 variances to do that.
Yes.
And they told you that it's conditioned on getting site plan approval from us.
Yes.
So that's the only reason that you're here.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And so Aaron is familiar with your application because he has dealt with it before the ZBA, so go to Aaron.
Okay. The only real comments that we have as far as the site plan responsibility of the planning board was, one of them we raised was that the correct zoning district should be, make sure that's shown on the plan. The approximate location of the septic system, existing and proposed setbacks.
Yes.
We also were, as has been done in other applications that you've seen, it's nice to show like what's the limit of disturbance to build the addition, and during construction are you going to have proper erosion controls around the area to make sure that like any exposed soil isn't going to run off and cause issues. So silt fencing is usually the standard thing. So if you adding to the site plan that area of disturbance and showing that there'll be a silt fence during construction, I think is helpful to have, because technically you're getting an erosion control permit at the same time as you're getting a site plan approval. And the building department would like to see that. So those are, that's comments 1 and 2. The third was just having the signature block on the site plan as well, the planning board signature block. Right now you have the applicant signature block, which is fine, but there's one that Susan has to sign as the chair that's in the memo. You can just copy and paste it. Your architect can just throw it into the plan. Otherwise, it's complying with the code. We did look at, as part of the ZBA review, we looked at all the things that we would look at for the planning board, the NRI maps. There's no issues, there's no wetlands on the site. The addition's actually in the back of the house, so it's really not going to be visible from the road. This does require a referral to the county, just because it's on Route 44. It's something that the ZBA didn't have to do, because variances don't count for referrals, but because this is technically a site plan, it has to go to the county for comment. So I recommend that referral happen tonight. You can also classify this as a type 2 action under seeker, just like the ZBA did as they looked at it. And I think you can also set a public hearing. Unfortunately, you have to have a public hearing for site plans as well, even though it's minor in nature. So you could schedule that for the August 5th meeting. But otherwise, the ZBA really had no concerns with this. They're not increasing bedrooms, they're consolidating, so it's going to be more or less the same type of house, just a little more space for the family. Did I get that right?
You did,
Okay.
yeah. Does anyone have any questions, comments? You've seen the plan. Okay. So, the first thing I need is a motion to classify as type 2 action on the speaker. So moved. Seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then Lisa will refer this to county planning. And I think we're ready to schedule the public hearing for next month. Can I get a motion to schedule the hearing? So moved. Seconded? Second. All in favor?
Aye. So I think just by the deadline for the next meeting, if you can have your architect update the plan drawing to show those things we asked for, and
Yes.
should be in good shape.
So the next step would just be to go back and revise the plan, the application that was submitted with the, you know, addressing the comments in this memo. And then separately for the public hearing, does that require the same notice that I did for the CDA, the publication and the neighbor mailing? Okay. Okay, and I'll follow up with you on that, and I would just do that in advance, and we'll plan to be here. Should we plan to have a PowerPoint presentation?
No.
My interior finish.
I've been on this board for 7 years, and I think it's the first hour.
That was pretty good, I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, it's nice for people to have things to look at, though it does.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, careful what you wish for.
I would encourage you to get your papers into Lisa earlier than the deadline. That way, if there's something amiss, you have time to correct it before the...
Absolutely. There shouldn't be an issue doing that. I think it's the items for the feedback very clear. So, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Huh? Thank you for your
That was
patience.
fascinating. I learned so much. And I also, Short Road is a gravel road, but...
Come back every
scenic.
month, it's always exciting.
So, two quick things. The town of Stanford had notified us about a project they were doing right on the borderline of our town. And last week they had a public hearing, and they approved that Boys Dorm, new Boys Dorm. And next, I just wanted to ask Adam to tell us, we had a little subcommittee with Eric, and they met to talk about the fees issue. So I wanted to just get an update.
Yeah, Erica.
Yeah, thanks. Eric and I met last week briefly and talked about the issue that we had discussed about the cost of bringing applications to our committee. And he was going to write a letter and send it to you for review with the hope that we could then circulate that and discuss it as a board.
Great. Okay.
We didn't come up with any we have some ideas, but didn't come up with any specific recommendations at this point.
One thing I think we could do right now, because we talked about it last month, which was have people come, just pay the initial fee, and then come before us and have Aaron tell us what this really means in an escrow, rather than doing it in advance, where Lisa has to collect $10,000 from people when this and this. So we actually did that for the last applicant, because she'd been before the ZBA. She really only had this is going to be quick and simple, and Aaron was able to tell me we don't need that kind of money from her, which normally her application, it would have been over $10,000 that she had to give, but instead she just did the $1,500.
So the idea there, therefore, would be to set an escrow amount on a case-by-case basis.
They give an initial escrow anyway,
Yeah.
but that the extra escrows would be decided.
Well, that's basically what we discussed the other day, trying to find a way to quantify or categorize scope of work or types of projects to reduce the amount that, say, an individual person coming to add an extension to their, or a bedroom to their house doesn't have to put down the same amount as someone who, say, was coming forward with a development. And so, but I think on a case-by-case basis, obviously it would slow us down if that had to happen. That's sort of what we thought. I mean, but what metrics do you use to set those categories? Is it assessed value? Is it acreage? Some towns have classifying as a minor project or a major project, and they have to have fees for each one.
It's like wetlands versus a special permit versus, and some of those are already set. They're separated out. Site plan, special permit, they're all, it's really like when it's a site plan, that's where it gets expensive. And I think it's wrongly done on our fees thing, because that's, if it's up to up to $10,000 in development fees is one thing, and up to above 50,000, anybody who does anything these days.
It's 50,000.
I mean, you don't swing a hammer for less than that, it seems like. So we're getting these $10,000 fees from virtually everybody with a site plan, and we're not using that money either.
Right.
And
So
we're gonna
do
get back
it's
to
escrow. Give it back to them eventually?
It's escrow. Well, yes, it's just escrow. So but it
But
is-
it's still a burden,
it's a
financial burden.
huge burden
yes, it
on
is.
the
They
give you
applicant.
their money and you sit around and hold on
And it's
to
a
it.
pediment, and
So-
people try to do things without getting,
The thing is, when it disincentivizes people to do the right thing, because it's prohibitively expensive, and so they don't, they don't work around, they just do it on their own and don't tell anybody. Yeah, which is not what we want. So, okay, we'll follow up, but.
So
I-
Eric,
well, how about just classifying just minor and major projects, and
Well, you
how
have
do
to
you
define,
distinguish?
you have to define those,
Yeah,
and
I know.
that requires a code update. so, yeah.
Done, Richard. Solve the whole.
That'd be great.
But I think, the ZBA has initial escrow too of $1,500. It's the same as yours. And in the case of the last applicant, they're coming in, they're paying $1,500 for the ZBA, they're getting approval, and then they're getting referred here, and they're paying another $1,500. Like $3,000 for both is more than enough. I mean, there's public hearings. There's 2 public hearings. They have to have one at the ZBA, one here, so that makes the attorney and the planner have to come twice.
Another thing that
So
Eric and
it adds up, but I don't think you're going to need more than the initial. I made that clear, I think when we had a call with Susan, I said she doesn't need to submit more than this.
He and I sat at the table and opened up our website, our board's website, to try and go through the process if you were an applicant to see where you would find information, and it's totally opaque. It's very confusing. There is a section, there's a...
Tell you, there have been countless hours spent on making that.
I know, but there's,
improved version.
there is a section that says applications and fees or something, and there are no numbers in that text. I mean, it doesn't tell you what the fee structure is.
I'm not clear about the difference between the fees and the escrow. We're just talking about escrow in this
Yes.
case, right? Because
Well, then I'm not. Yeah, my
and
language
by
isn't
the
clear.
board.
Correct.
We're speaking about escrow.
Yeah.
Right, but it is, I don't think, at least in the few minutes that we spent looking for it, it doesn't tell you specifically what the minimum escrow would be.
Okay. That's surprising, but I'm thinking that sometimes with
The
the
application
website, the links get messed up, and they don't go to the right things, or they go to old documents. We're always trying to.
I think the planning board application has in it
Does have the fees in the
initial
application.
escrow $1,500.
But it should, I mean...
It's part of a
obviously,
checklist.
On our website,
more than
as a first,
Okay.
if somebody goes to our website
That's
beginning this process,
very
it should be
easy.
at the top.
Yeah. Okay, so we will follow through on that,
Yeah.
and I'll read what you guys have sent me, and we'll talk more about that. Okay? Thanks for doing that.
Sure.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? No? Okay, can I get a motion to close?
I do have a question. Being in such areas, seeing both zoning board and planning board applications come in, they're very similar. Zoning board's a little bit less paper than planning. Yes, they both have initial application fee, initial escrow fee. Zoning board automatically, when a new application comes in, we send out for public hearing immediately. So that way, they do it all in one.
Yeah, well,
Is that ever talked about in planning to do the same thing?
we don't always need public hearings.
Okay.
So there, I guess everything before the ZBA needs a public hearing. I've never been on the ZBA, I don't know the answer to that, but.
about everything.
I'm not familiar with that process.
I don't know about everything on the,
That's interesting how that.
As long as we've been helping the ZBA, every time they've had a variance application, they've had a public hearing, and it happened the first appearance.
Yeah.
So they had it set to coincide with the first meeting, so that it all gets done in one meeting.
So every variance application has a public hearing, but what other applications do they do besides variance?
Appeals come in from, which also I think,
special use permit.
yeah, a lot of the special permit for the expanding a house is like the most common thing.
Yeah,
We've been doing this for 3 years
For
now.
that special permit, they don't need a public hearing.
It technically sometimes
It's
it
hard
counts
to-
as a variance because if you go over 25%, you're asking for a variance.
Where to coincide.
Well, then
Yeah.
they need the public hearing, okay.
Yeah.
So I guess they just make it easier for themselves, saying, well, we always have a public hearing. Let's just, but we don't always need it.
Yeah, lot line adjustments, we don't do public hearings, yeah.
I don't know that we could do that, but we could maybe think about it in advance, though, and try to.
We have so many issues to discuss before we have a public hearing, usually.
We don't know when, like, we certainly wouldn't be ready at the first meeting for a lot of what we do.
I think, yeah, and planning board applications are a little more complicated on our end to review. We have, sometimes the information's not always complete, and we have comments that we want to make sure are on the record, that they didn't do something right, or they're missing this, or missing that, the plan's missing something. We also look at the NRI and give, you know, thoughts about issues,
If we want to
seeker.
speed up the process
Yeah.
for people, we do have to do what we need to do in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah, but interesting point, I didn't know about that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now, a motion to close the meeting, can I get that? Motion to close. Seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you,
Good
everyone. Thank you.
That public hearing was much better than I anticipated.